Well, I've come down to see Mr. Gawne in his capacity this time of overseas aid and what we've been doing for Sierra Leone. And the reason for this particular chat is that on Sunday on BBC TV, there's quite an exciting possible link to give the Isle of Man due credit for what it's been doing in Sierra Leone. Over to you.
Yes, I think it was about 2 years ago that the BBC filmed a series of the toughest place on earth to be a fisherman in this particular instance, and the fisherman is now going back 2 years later. Now, in the course of those 2 years, Andy Reid, the fisheries director from DEFA, has been over and was commissioned by the World Bank to look at improving the enforcement of fisheries legislation. Added to which, we visited Sierra Leone last September to gift them the boat, the patrol vessel, which is now called the Isle of Man patrol vessel. And the BBC has been back and filmed this, and there's a film going out on Sunday which hopefully will show the Isle of Man in a very good light.
Because we haven't seen it, you never know, but that's the plan anyway.
Yeah. I mean, certainly what we do know, we know from the trailer for the BBC programme, is that the fisherman is really quite amazed at the significant amount of progress that's been made in the 2 years since he was there. And certainly, again, I've just returned from the intense heat of Sierra Leone to the freezing Arctic wastes of the Isle of Man. So we were there about 2 weeks ago, Andy Reid and myself, really just to make sure that the work that we've done so far has worked, and to make sure that because they had an election in Sierra Leone in October, and there's a new ministerial team being appointed in the Fisheries Ministry, and we wanted to make sure that the people were there were people that we can trust, and to ensure that we have got a good and sound use of the money that we've been investing in that country.
Well, we're seeing some pictures that you've taken on your iPhone and some video here. Who's this gentleman you're talking to?
Yeah, talking to the World Bank man in the field down in Sherbro Island, which is an island remarkably similar size to the Isle of Man, although much of it is mangroves and swamps. So this gentleman has basically been going around educating fishermen, explaining to them about the needs for proper fisheries enforcement measures and sustainable fisheries practices, and also much of what he was saying was very positive, that the work that's been going on there has been quite successful, to the extent that all of the villages have set up their own individual fisheries committees, and even though they have no power to do so, they've been going around and arresting anyone who's been breaching any of the regulations, which is it's quite encouraging to see the level of understanding that you can't keep fishing this stuff because eventually all the fish will be gone. So what we've found on our latest trip to Sierra Leone was that indeed the illegal fishing from the trawlers has largely ceased. I mean, there's still a bit of it going on, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was a year or two ago. And certainly the Isle of Man vessel is in excellent condition. We had an opportunity to spend a day out on the Isle of Man and found that the crew were looking after it extremely well. It's going really well. There doesn't seem to be any damage to the boat whatsoever. It's caught, I think, 7 illegal vessels, I think something in the region of $500,000 worth of fines that have been imposed as a result of the prosecutions that took place. So it's doing its job, it's doing it very well.
Because, I mean, the doubters will always worry that, was this a good way to get rid of the vessel? Are they legit? Because, you always hear these stories about the corruption in these sort of countries, but you have seen it for yourself.
Absolutely, and yes, there's no doubt there is still corruption in that country, but what the gifting of something like the Isle of Man vessel does is gives heart to the junior officers who are not yet corrupt, it gives heart to the politicians who have integrity, and there are plenty of them. It gives them heart to keep going and to keep trying to stamp out the corruption. And it also sends a very clear threat to those perhaps more senior civil servants who are corrupt, that they can't carry on doing this, because there are people outside of the country and inside the country who are working to stamp this out.
What happens next? Do you go back again?
Possibly. Certainly I hope so, in that we really do want to make some significant investment in the country that will really work for the people out there. We were working with, we're working with the Minister, who we've now met and can confirm is a very sound integrity and a tough cookie, and he's the sort of person who's really going to get things done. But we were also talking to a number of private investors, so a fairly small amount of funding that the Isle of Man might be able to put in to sort out governance, to make sure that the vessel monitoring system is of the highest possible capacity, to make sure that the governance in the department is working as well as it possibly can, to make sure that the fishermen on the ground are fully au fait with the need for sustainable fisheries practices. Get all those measures into place, and those are the things that we can help directly with, because we have expertise in the department. We can do all that, and then the private investors invest quite significant sums to get trade links from some of the more outlying places, so that they can get the fish fresher into the capital, so they can make more money that way. We're also looking at working potentially with the Fair Trade Foundation and a variety of other international organisations to see whether we could potentially 2 or 3 years down the line get trade into Europe with sustainably caught fair trade fish, which I think would be a fantastic thing. And I think the important thing to remember, because I know there will be people who will be looking at this and thinking, oh, it's a terrible waste of taxpayers' money, we've got all these problems of our own, why on earth are we doing this? The important thing to remember is this is good for our profile internationally. It is, we've got the BBC programme that's coming out on Sunday, but we've also had a number of senior ministers on trips to London recently, and the fact that we've been donating money to Sierra Leone has been mentioned and has been welcomed there. I mean, I had the opportunity on this recent trip to spend 3 or 4 days with a senior team from the World Bank. And again, it's helping us build our international image and saying to the public, the international bodies that often criticise the Isle of Man, actually the Isle of Man is a good place that does good things and is a mature player in the international scene.
Would you even like to go as far as see some twinning going on between us and them or something?
Well, it certainly would make some sense. I think the Scottish government and various other governments have twinned with certain countries. I mean, Scotland has this relationship with Malawi, which seems to work very well for them. It sort of makes sense for us to try and do something similar here. Now, whether we can do that and whether the funds are going to be available and how it will all work out, I don't know. But certainly there are plenty of things that we already invest in. I was seeing, while I was out there, some water systems that were put in by Oxfam, for example. I know we're working with Save the Children out there on a new project. Christian Aid we're working with on projects as well. So there's quite a lot of government funding goes into that country, and I think potentially for the Isle of Man, there's some really positive things that can come out of that by way of business. Maybe not in the next 2 or 3 years, but as the country moves from bottom place in the UN Development Index as the poorest country in the world, it's got a lot of resource. It's got some really incredibly bright people who live in the country, and I can see that being quite a major place that we could do business with, maybe in 5 or 10 years' time, as the economy bounces, which it is already doing. I mean, growth rates in 20, 30, 50, 80%, these sorts of levels. So it's a place that's growing and growing fast.